What's up, everybody? I'm Scott,
I'm Jason.
and you are listening to Liquid Kernedge. What's up, my friend?
We are in the month of May, and the signs are pointing that we're going to be able to walk outside again and talk to people again. So I am getting jazzed up, baby.
Right? I mean, our governor over here in Arizona, they did extend our shutdown for another 2 weeks, but the citizens of Arizona, I think, basically said, no, we can't do it anymore. We tried, whatever. Let us go back to the way we were living and make our own decisions on how we're going to handle this.
Yeah, yeah. I just hope. I mean, I think you said it best. We can all hope that we can stay sick, but frankly, there's no guarantee. When they say that 80% of us will never have symptoms and yet might carry it, I I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, but
You know,
but we got to be safe. We got to be smart. We
yeah.
got to do the right thing. So
I tell you, what's funny with that is my finance guy called me last week, and he was just giving me an update on my accounts because, the world's been the shit for the last couple months.
right.
And we were talking about this, and he put it in a very good way to think about it, about why you shouldn't be scared. You know, um, he said, if I told you that if we start a business today, there's an 80% chance of success that your business will take off and you'll never look back, would you want to start that business? I said, well, yeah. He said, that's what's going on here with COVID. There's an 80% chance you're not going to get it or you'll never feel the symptoms. So how do you want to live your life? And that's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
You still have to be mindful of everything. There's still pitfalls, but you still have to have everything in perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I like there's a big difference to me versus when you're sick and you're going out and doing things. That to me is different than I'm going to wear my mask in the store or I'm going to do the social distancing when I go to a rest. When you're making
Yeah.
the precautions, chances are things are going to be okay. It's when you're sick and you go out to a restaurant with a bunch of people, shame on you. And maybe that's what it is they have to protect against those kind of people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that when you're wearing a mask, you're not protecting yourself from them. You're protecting them from you. It's so you don't cough on them. It's so you don't get your germs on them. And Tom and I were talking because he's up in Denver now, and after last week's episode, we were chit chatting because he went and did his pre-employment, and he said that he went to Target to grab some things, and he said if you're not wearing masks and gloves up there, you get looked at like a pariah. And
Oh yeah,
I
okay. So they socially shame you?
shame you, yeah, basically. So you just get those looks, and I said down here, man, it's about a 50-50 in any store I've been into, and I'll be honest, I don't wear a mask. I keep one with me, but I'm not coughing or sneezing on people, and I'm staying out of everyone's way as much as possible. So I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, I can take my own precautions, and if you want to look at me funky because of it, that's on you, not me. I'm not gonna live in fear.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be a little bit more cautious. I'll probably wear a mask when I'm out. But like last night, I picked up dinner. I was the only person in the restaurant. I didn't have a mask on. But
Yeah,
but if
yeah,
I'm going
and
to go to a social, like if I'm going to go to a place where they're like shopping, where there's a bunch of people, I'll probably wear a mask. I mean, just to be on the safe side. But yeah, I'm ready for social. They call it social distancing. I call it social responsibility. Like
yeah.
we all know now that it's spread like the flu. So, keep yourself safe. Don't go out and do crazy things.
Yeah, I was reading an article about from a lady today. I forget her name, but her nickname in the pandemics reporting world is Cassandra, because Cassandra is the goddess of, I guess, bad news in Greek mythology.
Okay.
Where if she comes and talks to you, it's because it's not good. And she uh, developed and predicted the trend for H1N1 and Ebola and all that. And she was looking at the trends for this, and she said this is about a 36-month issue when it's all said and done.
That's
She
3 years.
said, "Yeah, thank you. It's 3 years if you can't do the math. 36 months." Said, and
Holy
that
crap.
that
Ooh.
is generated because we're not getting hit in one giant tsunami of this. It's going to come in waves and pockets and exposure because there's no real accurate way to see how it's going to be and
Wow.
how it's going to form. So it's going to change how we do a lot of things for a long time, if not forever.
Yeah. Well, I
You know,
found it
so
interesting because in the the one thing I have noticed, and it's been a positive for me that I'm really excited about carrying forward after we're out back to somewhat normal, is I've been doing a lot of reading. I've been doing a lot of reading,
yeah,
and I've been kind
I
of
have
going
two
back
actually.
and forth between like business books and self help books, and back and forth with those kind of things. And I was reading a book, and I finished a book about the idea of money, and this book is called Coined. And the book is basically, it's a historical perspective of money, but it also gets into how money has played a part in disasters. When things have happened bad, money has been kind of the great equalizer to get everything back up to what we think is normal. And I found it fascinating because I was obviously we're in the middle of this whole thing with the COVID, and even in the book, they were saying that when these kind of things happen, the use of money and the use of people's use of that economics changes after something bad happens.
Mm-hmm. That makes
And
sense.
one of the things that I thought was interesting is he was talking about that most people don't realize that money, like dollar bills, are very, very dirty. Like they have a lot of disease on them. They have a lot of like bad DNA and bugs and microorganisms on money because it's kind of it's paper and it's in your pocket and it's
Mm-hmm.
traveling around. But they were saying in the new world that a lot of people have found different ways to create kind of like a barter system where
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, hey, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. And I thought, I wonder if in this today's world, because a lot of people have taken a pretty bad financial hit with money, but we our dogs need to be groomed. And this girl worked at Petco before the pandemic, and she just basically started offering to groom dogs for money or food. Like she would make deals with people on this little Nextdoor app that, hey, if you bring us some food, I'll groom your dog. And I thought, man, that's kind of weird that we're getting to that point where people are just saying, look, there's other things other than cash that I can still survive on. And that's what she did. She used her services to help others, and they gave them food, or they paid her in something else. So
Well, that's what you have to do in this world right now, because I still don't understand, and you see all these memes around social media and all these sayings around it. Why the smaller businesses were forced to close, but bigger businesses were fine to stay open. And and I'll be interested to see what the study was for the amount of people that got that caught the disease that worked in the big retails and the grocery stores and those things, because it's just funny to me that for some reason those were allowed to stay open with certain restrictions, but the smaller businesses were not. They had to shut down.
right. Yeah. Like I feel bad for the bars because I mean, obviously, when you run a bar, those liquor licenses are very expensive.
Yeah.
We got a notice today that one of a big brewery down in Scottsdale is closing. One of
Oh, you
the
talking about
Four
Four
Peaks,
Peaks?
yeah, in Scottsdale is
Yeah, but
closing.
they said they're closing in January anyway because their lease was up.
But they're closing. I thought they were talking about relocating. But anyways,
No, just that store, the one
yeah,
that's
just that
closing. They were
store.
going to
Right,
close.
right, right.
They were just going to close at the end of the year anyway. Yeah,
But another
yeah.
form of currency that's coming out now is all of these rewards cards, like Starbucks. Airlines do these things where you get points there, and the whole thought of currency is changing than more than just a dollar or a piece of paper or a coin. And I thought, man, that I never could understand the idea of money. So that's why I read this book. Because I could never understand how someone says that this dollar is worth one package of eggs, and who decides what that's worth and how that gets worth. So I read this book, and it was kind of fascinating that, even in today's world, people are constantly looking at, well, what other skills besides money do I have? What other things can I trade in? And So it's a fascinating book. It's called Coined, Coined. It's totally nerdy for me to say this, but if anyone's interested in finding about the history of money and also the future of money, it's a great book.
Yeah, it's while you were going through finance, I opted to take a different route. Normally, I would read fiction. I've got a lot of books by J.L. Bourne I like to read. They're just kind of fun, and it takes my mind off of the reality. But I chose this time to. I've been going through a lot of stuff over 2020. This has not been a banner year for me for various reasons, and it looks like there's no signs of it getting any better anytime soon. So I turned to some self help books just to
Oh,
kind of get a better understanding and work on trying to change my mindset toward things because I know I can be a very stubborn person and I can be a very stuck in my ways OCD person. And
no,
yeah, I know it's weird, right?
no.
I know. And I just hit that point right before all this happened where, it's like a few people just randomly said, you're a hard person to understand and get to know because you have so many walls.
Mm.
So, you take that to heart after a while. And when you can't, basically when the quarantine started, I had to sit down and take a look at myself and figure out, all right, why am I doing things the way I'm doing them? What can I do to fix them? So I read a book called The Mastery of Love, where it talks about how to heal yourself through your past relationships, through your with your family and your loved ones, and how to make yourself a better person for your partner when you're in a relationship. So it's one of those just it's kind of hard to explain, but just how to change your mindset. And that led me to the book, so other books by the same author, The Four Agreements. I don't know if you've ever read that one.
I've
That's an
heard of
interesting.
that one. I've never read it, but I've heard of it, and I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, and it's been eye opening too. One of the chapters in there, one of the agreements is be impeccable with your words.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, and when you talk about when you say be impeccable with your words, I think the first instinct is to think about how you speak to people, what you say to people, the tone you use, the words you use, just how you interact with everyone on an individual basis. And that particular agreement talks not just about that, but how you talk to yourself and how
Oh,
your
yeah.
self talk builds and or sabotages every relationship you're ever in, either romantic or platonic or familial. Like you have to worry. You don't have to worry about it, but you have to work on how you speak to yourself, and actively work to change that mindset. So I've been reading that, and then I started a new one today called "Unfuck Yourself," which is a similar. Uh,
That's a similar topic, though.
it is, and I'm still very early in the book, but the first two chapters are basically how to be kind to yourself or just change your thought process on how you look at the world. And because you get stuck, your brain is always rewiring itself, and if you constantly think that things are going to go bad, things will be always going bad for you. So you have to change that mindset to where you're thinking positive, you're opening yourself up to new experiences and being willing to do it. And that's what I'm trying to work on right now, is not saying I can, but I'm willing to do things because it's productive and it sets up for longer term success.
Well, I mean, from my own personal experiences, when I hit rock bottom and I had to actually say, Jason, you keep blaming other people for why you've hit rock bottom. And I'm the only constant in this whole
Yeah.
this whole story. So maybe I need to start changing my programming. And the counselor I went to said, imagine that your emotions and your heart are like a computer program. That when something breaks on a computer program, someone puts a fix. They don't necessarily reprogram everything, but they put a fix on top of it. And then that gets them through until another break happens and another fix and another. And then when you look at the programming, there's all these fixes that have been layered on top of layers that you're no longer near that programming, that authentic programming. And you have to decommission some of these past things that you programmed. I know I said it too many times, but the point was, yeah, we do a lot of self healing. Something bad happens to us, right? We put something in place to protect us so we don't hurt for that thing. But 15
Exactly.
years
Yeah.
later, we don't need that anymore because we're stronger, we're more emotionally, but we still have the programming in our brain. So
Yeah. and that's what I'm working on, because I was dating somebody, it was a lot of very close with, and we had a lot of fun, and she went to go work on herself and needed some time, so I figured it's a good time for me to work on myself, and it's been a difficult journey because there's a lot of unknown, but if I've realized what I want in life, and we're gonna get emotional here for a second, but I've realized what I want in life, so I can't get to that point unless I change how I've looked at certain things and changed my mindset, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm working on. It's trying to put those tools in place to be that next version of who I am for whoever uh, wants to, I guess, be with me or date me. It sounds kind of weird to say it like that, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm just trying to make sure I'm the best version of me for someone that wants to, you know what I'm trying to say?
I remember one time, just to not get too far off the topic, but I remember one time um, a single friend of mine asked me, said, I just don't understand. I've got a job. I've got a good job. I've got a house. I've got a car. I pay my bills. Like, I think I'm a catch. Why am I not a catch? And the only thing I could think of is that for a lot of people, that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I remember that, I was living in my car for a moment of time where I was broke and had nothing, and yet I felt like, wow, man, I'm the best person that I could possibly be at this moment, and it was all attitude, and maybe it was a wrong attitude, but I felt like I had nothing, and yet I felt more confident about who I was as a person and what I had to offer other people and myself, that it it is a frame of mind that you say, I have to, we have to constantly be looking at what we bring to the table that is not, I don't want to say superficial, but it's not the outside things that we bring. Good job,
Yeah.
good car, good house. That's not all of it, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's what, I can relate to your friend. I'm fairly confident I know which one you're talking about, and I understand their position, and I know I've been reading these books because I need to figure out how to unlock that emotional, blockage or whatever I've had, and let my feelings be known, and be willing to evolve into that next version of me. And I think these books are helpful, but they're only helpful if you actually take the time to do the work.
So I found something interesting and I'd love to have your opinion, since you're kind of reading a genre of book. I've been reading a genre of book. I've been reading more. I've kind of been, one of our podcasts that we did was, what would you tell the 20-year younger version of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, we kind of talked about what would we have told ourselves 20 years ago if we knew what we knew now. And both of us said, oh man, start investing, start saving money earlier. And I remember the realization at that point was, well, Jason, you still have 20 years of work. Why don't you just start now? Like, what does it matter if you didn't start 20 years ago, but you can start now? So based on that podcast, I've been doing a lot of books, reading a lot about how
Mm-hmm.
to determine the value of a company and how to determine how to invest properly in companies. And I've learned a lot, but I've noticed that, and I don't know if you've seen this in your books. Have you found that when you read books of a certain genre, that there's a common theme or common couple themes that are in
Yeah.
every single book, that it doesn't matter who wrote it, when it was written, there are common things that are fundamental principles that we all could learn from, and for whatever reason we don't.
Well, I think there's all common principles that we need to remind ourselves about, though, too. And they're very basic things you don't think about because you consider them so basic. Does that make sense? You
Well,
know,
yeah, or you think it's too basic to really focus on.
yeah, exactly. In the case of the genres I'm reading, be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, be willing to grow and evolve. But most importantly, listen to how you're speaking to yourself, because you talk to yourself the most out of anybody else all day. And if you're not kind to yourself inside your head, why would anybody want to be kind to you outside?
Oh wow.
It's things like that it seems so basic, but it's really true. And I'm my own worst enemy in so many ways. I was talking to my one of my coworkers today, and I realized if drunk me and emotional me would stay out of my way, I could probably keep everything pretty level and be all right. And that's what I'm starting to learn through all this process too. It's just trying to stay balanced and be kind to myself and not beat myself up over things that I have in the past. And that's what I would tell myself my 20-year-old self or my 19-year-old self. Like, this is what you need to be okay with. You need to be able to be willing to evolve.
Have you come across a writer or a take on a subject matter that you've been reading where you just say, you know what, I just don't agree with that. So that's something that like a differing personality or differing perspective from a writer where you say, you know what, I'll take it as a piece of knowledge, but I'm not going to follow that path.
Not yet, not really. I think I'm in a phase where I'm trying to not find answers per se, but just try to understand different perspectives. And I haven't come across one yet that's made me say, you know what, I don't like that. That is not, and I don't think I've come across that yet.
Yeah. See, I've been reading these books, and I've been reading these stock market. I guess they call them strategies, but I've been basically trying to say, look, when I look at, let's say, a company, any company, Walmart, how do I know that Walmart is a good company or a bad company from a financial perspective? Well, when you read these books, each author has a particular take on how they invest in the stock market, and I find it interesting because all of them have the same goal. Hey, you need to put money away. You need to buy good companies, and here are my strategies, and here are my others. And then another author has different strategies. And while the premise is the same, you need to save money and invest. There was a way of making money. It just didn't even make sense. So I finished the book, but I thought, I guess I'm glad I read it, but it's something I wouldn't do. I'm not going to do that path. And I find it interesting.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about finance, you're a person's financial perspective is very much like their political perspective. You might both be Republicans or Democrats, but you might have different views on how you view your particular party affiliation and how you want to execute that. Being very conservative versus being moderate, or being very liberal versus being more centrist. I was talking to a friend who had a good perspective on finance. He goes, I invest in stocks that pay dividends that will someday pay a utility bill for me every month. And that's what I invest in. So I buy the stocks when I can, and when the dividends pay out, I reinvest. So someday when I'm ready, the dividends that they pay out will pay a certain bill, whether it be my gas bill, my electric bill. I was like, well, that's actually a pretty smart idea.
Yeah, I read a book where the guy. So one of the books I read, the guy did not believe in any investment that you would keep longer than 3 months. I wasn't
I'm not
either,
sure I could be
and
okay
that's
with
why.
that.
But I think the one thing, as we kind of get close to the end, is one of the things I loved about these books is that you can take all these different opinions about what you should do or what you shouldn't, and you can find the one or two nuggets of a book. They say, you know what, I'm not going to listen to anything but this one nugget. And this book has about 5 nuggets. I'm going to take that one. And you get all these books and you find out what really interests you. And then that leads to the next step of, okay, well, that's an interesting premise. I'm going to go research that now. And it's been eye-opening because before I've usually just read like classics, like classic fiction. But ever since I started reading a lot of other books, I'm noticing that each book then takes you on a new path to something different.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the same journey I'm on with my stuff. It's going from, I don't want to say more like a religious base or just, like deity perspective to a common practices and common sense approach,
Yeah. And you know what, Scott, we're getting dangerously close to forming the Liquid Kernedge Book Club. We're getting close.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. I can see the EP's head exploding now, thinking of the books that he thinks we're gonna recommend versus the ones we
Well,
actually
I think
give.
I think it would be
So
a very big challenge for us, because not only would we try to find books, how do we find a common book amongst ourselves, but then how do we also get a common book for our listeners to also want to read?
I think this episode this week is another great example of why you and I are so different, but we find ways to be
Yeah,
so similar.
yeah.
You know, um, you can always tell the topics that Jason picks just based on the fact of how real world related they are. And I'm always more emotionally driven or conspiracy theory driven. I'm a lot more, I guess, I don't want to say not serious, but not a non-business like approach to this. But it works for us, and I think it makes us take a step back and have
Well,
different
I remember
perspectives.
right before we took the hiatus, we did the sorority girl in the sorority world, and she's a massive book reader. So I'm sure, I don't know what kind of books she reads,
Oh
but
yeah.
I bet she reads a wide range, and she might give us some good ideas too. But I'd be interested to see.
Oh yeah, we have to have
I'd
her
be
back on the
interested to
show.
see
Yeah.
if any of our listeners would be open or interested in doing a podcast, a book club for the podcast.
All right, so let me ask you this then. As we close out the show, are you interested in a Liquid Kernedge book club? We recommend a book. Maybe everyone takes a month to read it. Then we get online to discuss it. Because now, with modern technology being what it is, we can have a giant Zoom meeting about it. We don't have to record it, but we can discuss it. I think if you're interested in this, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all at Liquid Kernedge. If you want to recommend a book to our EP Tom, who is still in shelter in place in Denver, even though he started his new job today or this week, hit him up on Twitter and Instagram at liquid_EP and
Oh,
send
that's
him some
awesome.
love.
Well, I'm glad that, like I said, I am excited that we're starting to venture out a little bit and do some things outside, and we're because we're getting claustrophobic. The house is great and all, but after a while, it's just I'm
Yeah.
ready to be kind of do some other things. But one thing that will continue for me is I've really enjoyed taking that quiet, few minutes, an hour a day, and just diving into a book of interest. Some of the books I've read have just not been interesting at all, and it's like I'll never look at that book again. But a couple of them gave me really good nuggets for to live by. So I'm glad that you've been doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny, like you said, being stuck inside and not being able to go do a lot of things. You realize how much time you wasted doing things that weren't as productive as they maybe could have been, or you were avoiding doing. And there are practices like reading more that I'll be continuing as things get back to whatever our new
We're
normal
getting
is.
close, though, my friend. I mean, within the next couple of weeks, we'll be
We
back
are.
to a pretty more normal life, going out and enjoying a glass of wine or enjoying a beer or whatever. So
That's it. And all I can say with that is, before you take us home, is, ladies and gentlemen, start your bar tabs.
Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. I'd love to hear if anyone else is interested in joining a Liquid Kernedge Book Club. That was Scott. I am Jason. And as always, if you never know quite what to say, just have yourself some Liquid Kernedge.